Hello, Kate. Hello, Christopher Bryant. Hello, Gary. Hello, Deb.
Hello there.
Hello, hello. Welcome. Thank you for jumping right in, my wonderful co-host. So lovely to see you. And I'm actually excited about this topic of brainstorming, which was Rich, your idea.
It was, yeah. Well, I mean, we always have lots of great ideas. I mean, I think that everybody probably has a few different ideas they're kicking around at any moment in time. And so, why not have a space about it? Let's chat about it. If you have anything you're trying to work out, if you just want to bounce something off of somebody, I think we all kind of have different perspectives here and we all have different life experiences. So maybe we can come together and help somebody brainstorm.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of my favorite things about these spaces, or really any spaces, is that I can, depending, I don't always get the feedback I want, but I can kind of put out an idea or a thought and get immediate feedback, which is a lot of fun. And yeah, I know I like appreciate a little bit of a critical eye on things, so I don't waste my time. But I get it. People want to encourage, especially on X, like we want to encourage people to try new things, do stuff. So we can talk about how we brainstorm, and anyone else wants to come up and share their thoughts on that. And yeah, I like the idea of, if someone's got an idea that they want to work out, we can meld minds and make something happen.
I actually do. But I'm doing the poll here now. How long are we going for? So I can just set that.
I have a plan for 2 hours.
All day long.
Yeah. And if you, I understand Christopher is a very busy guy. So if he has to leave, and, Rich can take over the poll announcement, or, whatever, I understand.
I'll try.
Or if you can leave and come back, it's fine too.
No, I think I'll hang. I think it'll be fine.
Cool. All right. So I just got the notification for the poll. It's live, people. Jump down in the comments below the space here. Christopher, do you want to present it?
Yes. The poll is, what is the measure of a man? His deeds, his friends, his family, or other?
I can think of an other.
Hey.
All right. So this is actually less silly than normal.
Yeah.
What's that about?
I just, doesn't always have to be shits and giggles. It can be, the real shit.
It's much better than the poll that I came up with last week, Christopher, which was, if you had to replace the grass, what would you replace it with? It was really stupid. It was a Grok poll, just saying.
I thought it was kind of interesting because, like, I was thinking in terms of, like, what would be the worst, thing ecologically, and, like what would cost the most money to clean up.
Poison ivy. I don't know. Have you ever had to remove poison ivy? It's awful.
I have not.
Yeah, there's lots of other things that'll kill you where Christopher lives, but not poison ivy.
That's true. He has scorpions and snakes and stuff like that.
Yep. Got plenty of those. There was actually, like, a couple months back on my driveway, there was, like, clearly, like, a snake pattern in blood. And so I assumed, like, some hawk picked it up and there was, like, a fight going on. And I got to see, like, the remnants of that.
Yeah, I bet if you had like just a game camera out there, along your street or something, you probably see some wild stuff.
Yeah. Javelina, coyotes, all kinds of stuff. We're right on the edge of Phoenix, so
the Phoenix Lights.
Yep. The Phoenix. Well, it's pointed down, so we're never going to see that.
Oh.
I didn't get to see that. I was here. I just didn't know what was happening.
You were creating lights on your computer screen.
Yep.
Yeah, we're just chilling here while we get things started. We'll be talking about brainstorming, and sounds like Christopher has something that we can live brainstorm. I always do. I have so many ideas that pop into my head that I'm always ready to bounce those off of somebody and just get a blank stare. And I know Rich has got so many things going on too, so I'm sure he can think of something we can live brainstorm. But how about first we just kind of share like the tips and tricks, right? Like, what do we do when you have an idea or a thought and you kind of want to work it out? What do you guys do? And anyone who's listening down there, we've got Deb down there, we've got Caroline, good to see you. Feel free to request a mic and jump up here. and add your 2 cents, or you can just hang out on stage if you want to do that. That's fine with me too. That always helps us get some more visibility. And always repeat, always appreciate a repost and reply down below so you can say hi. And also, you can just drop your comments about this topic as well. Very much appreciated. So let's see, let's kick it off here. What do you guys like to do when you have like an idea, kind of an inkling, and you want to get more out of it, or you think there's something there? Where are you headed with that?
My best thing, my go-to is do like Claude or I'll do ChatGPT and I'll ask them for ideas that are, I'll give it the context and, give me some ideas of where this thing can go. And then it gives me, like a list, like a numbered list of like 10 terrible ideas. And then I get frustrated and then I come up with them on my own.
Yeah, I get that too, because it's like it just kind of gets the brain firing and realizing what you don't want. And then that narrows it down to be like, oh, I kind of knew all along what I wanted to do.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can kinda try to guide it, but it's terrible at that too, like, it's like fighting with a two-year-old, who doesn't wanna go to bed, you know? Like, it's that level of, like, "I don't wanna come up with good ideas, I wanna come up with only bad ideas."
Yeah. Oh boy, is AI really good at coming up with bad ideas? Yeah, it's almost like a way of ruling out any good idea. Like you think that might have been a good idea, and then AI says it, and you're like, oh no, I guess that was a bad idea.
When you think about it, it kinda makes sense, like, these are trained on massive amounts of data, and, I would make the argument that most ideas are bad ideas, or just kind of normal and plain and kinda shit, like, you're not gonna get the cream of the crop from Grok or ChatGPT or Claude. You're just that's just not gonna happen. Maybe once in a blue moon, it'll be like, "Oh, that's an interesting perspective," but usually not, which makes sense, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I find that once I kind of have a little bit of a narrowed down idea, then the AI is very helpful to just organize the thoughts that are within that. So when I need to delve, that's what the AI is really good at, delving into an idea deeper. Rich, what do you have on this? Do you use AI for brainstorming?
Yeah, I think Christopher read my notebook here and he took my answer. No, I'm joking. Yeah, I think we are all using AI for like everything in our lives now because I mean, come on, it gives us an edge, right? So yeah, I've totally been using AI anytime I need to brainstorm an idea that I have for maybe a story. Most of my ideas are usually stories, books, games, content ideas, different types of websites, different types of potential businesses. I do have some product ideas occasionally. And what I used to do is I would get out a book and then I would write about it, just open up a blank page and start sketching whatever I want it to look like, whether it be a website or a product. And then I would like do bullet points of whatever like the key features are or whatever I'm trying to accomplish with this product or service or whatever it may be, story idea. But yeah, here recently I have been going, well, if I have time, I'll go to AI. If I don't have time, I'll do a sticky note, either a physical sticky note on my desk or a sticky note on my monitor, one of the notes apps, sticky notes, which are annoying because they're all over your desktop and there's nowhere to put them all. But yeah, here lately, I've been pulling out my phone if I have time to chat with AI, and I will do voice chatting with AI because I think it's a lot easier just to voice chat with it and throw ideas back and forth that way. I mean, obviously I like sitting at my computer and reading everything that the AI is spitting out and telling me, but like sometimes I want to take a shower and I still want to brainstorm while showering, so I can bring my phone into the shower with me and I can chat with AI that way. Or sometimes I'm ready for bed, but usually at those late hours is when my mind is firing off ideas the most. So I'll sit in bed with my phone chatting with AI about my idea, which if it's a story idea or something, that's great because it's like bedtime story time. So yeah, I've been using AI a lot lately.
Yeah, I do the chat thing. Like ChatGPT has gotten so much better at this. And what I mean by that is when you use the advanced voice mode, you can kind of just talk for as long as you want, and it won't interrupt you like it used to. So if you did try that in the past and had struggled with it, I really recommend it. If you are paying for ChatGPT, or I don't know, it's probably available on the free plan to some degree. And it's really great for that, like just the brain dump, right? So that's like the pre-brainstorming. It's like you just get it out. And I find it a lot easier to just really fire hose that information out by talking. And when I'm writing it or typing it, like I get a little bit abridged and like shorten and maybe leave things out because I just don't want to type it all. But speaking it, I could just talk and talk and talk. And then now it's in ChatGPT for me. And the advanced voice mode, I don't necessarily listen to what it has to say. I may tell it to just like, summarize what I did, use my own words and phrases to put it in bullet points or something like that. It will hallucinate sometimes, but I do like it for just that, like spewing out an idea, brain dump.
I
It's
do
great
too.
for that.
Yeah, and like I said, you can have it, you can spew out your idea to the GPT or whatever, and go on and on and on for as long as you want. And then when you're finally finished, you can be like, all right, give that back to me. Give me a summary of what I just told you, and then it'll reiterate it to you. And if it has anything wrong, you can be like, stop, interrupt it in the middle of a sentence. Be like, no, that's not right. I said that, I want this to be this way. Now rewrite the story and give it back to me. And I love that I can do that.
Yeah, another one that I used to use a lot and I think is free is the Hume, Hume chatbot app on the phone. And that one's like a little bit more pushy, interrupts, but it's pretty good at like sorting your information. So if you spew a lot at it, it tends to have a better like memory about what you were saying, and it doesn't like make up what you're saying. So ChatGPT, I do find still will take what I'm saying and then like translate it through its own little like corporate filter. Whereas like, dude, I think out of the box, all right? Like don't put me in the box with you. And I want it to be kind of in my own words. And so I use the Hume chatbot. It seems to be a little bit better at that, but that's only for small little quips, little things. It's a little bit more difficult when you have a ton of information, you're trying to organize it, because they don't have it on a website. So it's only on your phone, right? So you're like have these chats on your phone. I really like doing the Chat GPT advanced voice because then I can do it all on my phone, take a nap, revisit it a couple days later, and go on the website and get all that info that we chatted about. And just, it's easier to copy paste all that in that format. So that's just one of the other voice models that I use if you're looking for alternatives to ChatGPT for brainstorming. Yeah.
That's cool. I've actually never used Hume, and I'm on their website right now. It looks like they've just released EV2, which is an empathic voice interface. Yeah, it looks really cool.
Yeah, so you have to have it on your phone. I think the website's just for like the API and all that stuff, the fancy stuff. But yeah, it's an interesting conversation. You can have like an actual conversation versus just, I don't know, if you've used ChatGPT voice mode, you know what I mean. Like that it kind of likes to take over a little bit, where this one will go along with you.
So it still uses GPT because it's asking me now to select a language model. So is it almost like a skin for a language model, or how does that work? How does it work?
No, I didn't think it was. They maybe made some changes. They had their own, maybe they do in some way. I don't know exactly, but yeah, I thought it was. Are you on the website? Because if you're on the website, it's going to be completely different than the phone.
Okay, it might be
Yeah.
completely, yeah,
Yeah.
because it said start call, and so I clicked it, and now it's asking me to use a language model, and then to select to start my call. So I don't know if it's going to do like a telephone call.
Yeah, I have no idea. Yeah, it's completely different. The phone app, it's just very user friendly. You open it, create an account, and it gives you like 10 weird doodle people to choose to chat with, and you just chat. And it's all voice. Yeah.
Okay, very cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna play with this one.
Yeah, yeah, it's fun. And it's very good if you're looking for like maybe a little more sympathetic ear. They have there's different models there that are more like, okay, I'm going to be your buddy, your pal here, or I'm going to help you particularly with brainstorming, or more task oriented. They have different ones. The differences, they're probably pretty minute, but it's kind of fun.
Well, can you get like an adversary on there, like somebody who challenges you, kind of gives you, pokes at you? Can you get that?
Probably. I mean, you could probably say, hey, I want someone to challenge my ideas here. Will you do that? And it'll probably do it, but it'll be like the compliment sandwich probably version of that, like, oh, that's a very great thought. This is where you could improve it, but keep working on it,
Kind of
buddy.
like us, right? Whenever we hear terrible ideas on here.
I've never heard of a single one. What are you talking about?
I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that.
All right, so we've got our friends up here joining us up on stage, and Slime Pet has their hand up, so we'll say hi. Day off from school.
Oh yeah, I did miss the first part of this, mainly because I was helping with my niece and getting lunch. Or I would have been here on time, but yeah. The baby comes first. Have Cap cut back, so I'll be doing my edits again. That was suffered. That was pain. And I am waiting for a package to come that I've been waiting for all day. Still isn't here.
You got your vapes going on.
My little niece is sleeping right now. She's so cute.
They'll never notice the vape smoke.
Just ignore Christopher.
I'm purposely.
Sometimes you have to.
Yeah.
That's cool. So you got Cap cut back. You've got some ideas for videos and content.
And then for the two AIs I use mainly, ChatGPT free version and Grok unhinged mode, because you can activate that now by just putting in the chat, typing in Grok activate unhinged mode, and it'll activate it. Oh boy, have fun. That unhinged mode is definitely unhinged. Right, it roasted me yesterday and sort of regretted it because it hurt.
Well, it's just an AI.
I'm like, I know I did this to myself, but man, I wasn't expecting it to be ruthless like it was. I'm like,
well, you can just come here and get the real thing.
Okay, Christopher. This isn't a roast space. All right, this is a welcoming
I will
environment.
do it if it's asked for. I will absolutely do that.
All right, so you heard it here. Christopher's offering roast services if you
nope.
are interested in
Grok
that.
is good at it.
Yeah, but that's cool that Grok's got back to his ways, his unhinged ways. So
you have to activate it. Otherwise it won't do it.
And is there like a toggle switch, or you tell him to
Nope,
go?
you just type into Grok activate unhinged mode. It's like, okay, you ready? It's so nice. I love it. I'm in a Grok community that told me about it, and they were like, this is what we were waiting for.
When you think about that, Grok having unhinged mode, is Grok the only AI model out there that does have like a humorous mode, like a funny mode? I think so, that I can think of.
As far as I know, I mean, you can practically get the same thing with a lot of APIs, but like none that you have to like just switch and then you're good.
I wonder if that's going to give XAI an edge over anything at any point in the future, like understanding humor.
Yeah, like not holding it back. I think it'll be more intelligent and more useful. Kate and I have talked about this quite a bit.
Yeah, because look, if you want someone to just agree with everything you say, there's a time and a place for that. When you just like want something productive, moving forward, things going how you want them to go. But there's definitely critical times whenever you're working on something when you want someone to push back a little bit, and that only hardens your own argument or your own content or your own thoughts on things, right? So if you're kind of sensitive about being challenged about stuff, and I don't mean Grok roasting you, that's obviously just for fun, but I mean if you're really using AI to develop an idea, a concept or something, that a little bit of pushback will improve your content. And if that bothers you, then you have to really think a little bit deeper about why. And you might not like it.
It's okay. Would you say that most LLMs, their default is toxic positivity?
Okay, no, we don't need to get into toxic positivity. But I mean, if you wanted to say or suggest that that was a thing, I would say probably the AI has a tendency to do that and agree with you, except for it will, if you suggest something that's harmful to yourself or others, it will push back on some of the stuff that's clearly not good for you.
I think we actually have tried this out, like you and I, where we're like, how far can we push it to where it'll still go along with it, even if it shouldn't? I think we've actually done this before.
Yeah, it sounds like something we would do. And, when there's anything new that comes out, it's a good test for the models to see how strict they are. But yeah, if you are brainstorming, I think it'd be worth prompting the AI, it's not from the very beginning, but once you kind of got your ideas dialed in, that you know what you want, a direction you want to go in with it, having prompting it to give you the counter argument or why people wouldn't like this, or give it a prompt to be a little bit negative. And again, don't take it personal, but use it. I like that idea. That's a good one. I'm see. I said in my post today, I was like, bring your notebooks, because there's these little tips that come along that even chatting with it, I won't come up with. We have to actually talk about it. It's cool. All right, so we got Becky up here. Hi, Becky.
Hi, Kate. How are you doing?
Doing great. Doing great.
I'm listening to the conversation and I think it's really interesting. I never thought about asking AI to explain why someone wouldn't like a post or why it makes changes on something. So I think that's a great idea. I've never tried it, but I might.
Yeah, it's worth
Yeah.
trying with it. I haven't thought of it either personally, like as far as when I'm posting my content, so I think that's probably a good one to incorporate, especially if, like, and I am kind of using AI for my content. Like, I think, but this is a confusing thing that people get a little bit upset about, and I'll explain more about how I use it for my content. But I'll let Becky finish.
No, it's just I use it too for the content, and it's great to, it's great to just ask Grok, can you create an image or can you proofread? Or I tried the roast and everything, and it's quite funny sometimes. But this is actually something I didn't think about or never tried. But AI is great because you can create so many things in so little time you could never do without. So therefore it's a great tool actually to use for content.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think Becky as well, when we talk about using AI for our content, it is for maybe like this brainstorming type of process, the brain dumping, just organizing our thoughts and ideas, and maybe even like a rough draft of a potential post. And I find it maybe not for like a regular old post, like usually I can hammer that out. But if I'm doing something that's a little bit more elaborate, like a long thread or something, I will, use all these tools to organize what I want to say in a flow that works for the thread. And also, if I want to limit to a character count, I can use the AI to help me with something that maybe I've already written, to like break it up into a thread or format it differently. You can ask it to throw in emojis, but always it's just a rough draft type of process to get to a point where you have it organized and presented in a way that will work for what you want to do. And then you can go in and tweak it if needed, or add in your own words, remove parts, add other parts. And it's super helpful in that way. And we'll go ahead to Rich. And I just want to say welcome to everyone who joining us today. Thanks for popping in. If you have any thoughts about brainstorming, I mean, we're talking a lot about AI today, but if you have other ways of doing it, I use spaces a lot, conversations in spaces. Like, already we've come up with some really cool ideas that I haven't thought of. And if you have any suggestions or ideas or thoughts, come on up, request a mic, and join us up here on stage, or please leave a reply down below, repost the space, share it out with your audience, help us grow the community. We always appreciate that. And with that, I'll go ahead to Rich.
Yes, we absolutely appreciate it. And I do want to say welcome, Caroline. I don't know if I said hello. How are you doing today? And Money, I see you down there, Money, and Nate and Fran, everybody. I know I saw you when you first came in, Deb. It's always good to see you here. And Becky, it's always wonderful to hear from you. And of course, Elon's alien pet slime. We love you. So I wanted to share one of my ideas, I guess, because I have been bouncing a lot of new ideas lately off of AI because why not? I mean, it's a genius. I have a genius that I can chat with now and just bounce any idea off of. So one of my recent ideas is to create a new app, an app or a program or something, and call it Story Lane. And the word story can be spelled with AI at the end, like story, Story Lane. And it'll be like an app that people call into, like the 1-800 Chat GPT app, but for children as they're getting ready to go to bed, and it'll tell them like a bedtime story. And they can work with the AI to develop the characters maybe, and they could like remember the phone number, and it could do like character voices, different types of stories like fantasy, sci-fi, a little romance stories, something like that. You could build the character. Maybe it could have an app also, not just strictly telephone based. Like you could go in the app and like maybe give visuals from the story as the story is being told. I'm sorry. Maybe it can be like episodic, and it'll be like a different story every night. I don't know. What do you think? Storytelling app.
It's good. It's good. I like it. One thing that I would suggest right off the bat, and Audible, which does audiobooks, that does this. So I think it's a good idea for it to be an app because you can plug this in. It has functionality where it's like if you're using it to try to go to sleep, you can set a timer on it and say like I only want to hear this for 40 minutes or 45 minutes, and maybe have it like after that time slowly start to drop down the volume until it's nothing. I think that would be very useful,
That's
especially
a good
for kids.
idea.
Yeah, and when you think of like a story time app, I always think of, kids being the primary user. I mean, of course, I know adults like it too. But I think that gearing it towards kids is probably the most effective strategy for something like this. So very easy for kids to use. And the problem with that might be that they can't actually dial a phone number. I don't know. Or something like speed dial, or I don't know, a button.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe it'd be better if it was like built into like a stuffed animal that they squeezed and then it just connected to Bluetooth or something.
Okay, there you go. Now that's an idea, like a Teddy Ruxpin with AI.
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, with the animatronics. Yeah.
Well, it kind of reminds me, I don't know if you guys ever did this, but when I was a kid, there used to be phone numbers in the back of like comic book magazines and stuff that you would call into, and it would be like almost like choose your own adventure
I remember that. I
stories.
did that. Yeah.
You remember that? Okay, yeah, it would be like party lines and stuff. So it'd be kind of like that. It was a lot of fun. I would do that a lot when I was a kid.
I think it speaks to how freaking bored we were back then that we would do something like that.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think I've always liked the idea of an AI in like a stuffed animal or an object because it's interactive and fun. And there's a reason why kids like see a doll and it's like eyes move and its lips, arms move, or whatever, just very basic movements, and they get very excited. I mean, even the little baby that the little girl will feed a bottle. It's like there's something to that, that's interactivity that they just really love. But we all know those toys, you kind of play with them a couple times and then never again. So with the AI built in, it would be more interactive and maybe get to know the child more, be able to help it with homework as it gets older, deal with problems at school. I don't know, like be that imaginary friend. Like, what's that movie with the Fred
Fred Savage,
no,
Little
no,
Monsters.
no.
Drop Dead Fred.
Drop Dead Fred. Thank you, Rich.
He was
I
not.
needed
He was
help.
not helpful though.
That's a
No,
great
and
movie.
yeah, I think that is a great idea, and I do like how my storybot idea has evolved into this walking and talking animatronic stuffed animal. But Hey, let's take it there.
I mean, okay, so this is a good thing to bring up because there have been attempts to do this kind of thing before, like this exact thing, and it would probably be good to see where they failed because I think most, if not all of them, did fail, and maybe it is just because of the hardware aspect of it. So if you were going to do that, I would suggest maybe splitting it off so you have the app, and then you have this, this whatever creature thing, little monster, whatever the hell it is. Use the app. You just plug it into your phone so that they don't have to buy that. So that if that fails, the app doesn't necessarily fail.
Oh, that's a
Okay,
good
hold on,
idea.
hold on. This is what you do. All right. So you build your app, and the child makes their character in the app and starts to build relationship with this
Yeah.
character.
And then it's like Build-A-Bear. They have to.
And yes, so they design the character how they want it to look and everything, and then
Oh, yes.
they buy the stuffed animal with the AI in it and everything. So now it's a living thing, and you charge like
Yeah.
an insane amount of money for that.
Yeah,
And
no, it doesn't have to stop there. You can be like, well, I'd love to tell you that kind of story, Billy, but you're gonna have to have your parents pay for the DLC pack.
Oh, yes. Or well, did you know that I have a twin or my strange brother Billy, he has his own stories he'd like to tell you by his AI or
but
whatever.
you have
And
to
then we can
upgrade
talk
it every
together.
year because it's going to grow with the child, right? So the alien gets bigger. It's like kind of a Tamagotchi spin-off as well.
Yeah, you have
So
to keep it alive
now,
with DLC.
yeah, so
Yes.
the animal or the creature has its birthday every year, and you get a special opportunity to buy the new version or mail back. You send the old one, or I don't know, or maybe just collect them all.
I like the
This is
idea of you
good.
having
Yeah.
like one little robot and then you buy different skins that are skins based on characters from the stories that you've created. And then if you put a different skin on the little robot, it'll tell you different news stories that you didn't have access to before.
Yeah, just like break it into the storytelling. Just be like, if you like this character to survive, Billy, press the in-app purchase button.
See how much fun it is brainstorming up here, guys. So if anyone else has like a weird idea or something that they're just like, I just thought of this, we can take it in some pretty crazy directions.
Yes.
Obviously, this isn't something that could happen tomorrow, but you could
Oh,
develop
it could
something.
happen. It could happen.
You could develop an app, right? That would be the first start. And then from there, if that gets popular, then you can build the prototype of the actual tangible thing, go on Shark Tank, get one of the sharks involved, and
Become
go
famous.
running. Yeah, that would be the path I would take with it.
Yeah, so you
And
could
make
use something like the Hedra API so that you could have them design their character, prompt it out, just talk to the thing, and it'll create it, and then suddenly it's talking, right? And that would be, I wouldn't say easy, but a hell of a lot easier than doing it yourself, like from scratch.
I think it'd be awesome. Almost like when you're starting an RPG game and a video game, how you do your character development there. It'd almost be like the same steps, picking a voice, building its face and stuff like that. And then that would work into the story. Or as you are building your story and telling your story, the story itself will create the character attributes. And then you'll have to start with whatever the story has created and then maybe be able to customize it a little bit from there based on the DLC content that you've downloaded.
and our friend who comes in here once in a while, Joe Pro, the story goes into his model that then creates the world through animated images, and he probably can do a
Yes.
3D world and make it into a video game, that personalized video game that, oh my gosh, the rich kids are going to have it good.
Oh,
We're
and
gonna-
then you can share your stories. So if you have a story that you've created and you really like it, you can push it out there to your feed, your story wall, and other people can have their robots tell them your story that you've created.
Oh my gosh, this is insane, but it's so good. And the reason why this is exciting to talk about and fun to talk about, because we know, like, if this existed, we would probably want to play around with it. So this is a cool idea. Becky had her hand up for a while, so I don't know if she has an idea for you too, Rich, or something else.
I wanted to know what do you use to make an app? Rich, I have a question just. But
What
I
do
have an
I
idea
use?
too.
I have not.
Yeah.
I have not. Christopher would probably be the better place to start with something like that.
You can use AI coding tools to create apps. That's definitely something you can do.
Which one do you use?
I think Claude has like an API for that kind of thing with computer use, and you can kind of have it build everything for you, and use like a code interface. I mean, it's not simple to set up, but you can also ask how to set it up. So kind of step by step.
Okay, I have to try this. Is it difficult? Because if you have no experience with coding and something like that, you don't know exactly what you do there. Do you get through
So
the
I'll
whole
talk as
process?
who doesn't know anything, that this stuff is hard, and there's a reason why it's all of us here on X don't just have an app in our bios. Like, if it was easy, we would all be doing that.
I would argue it's probably
Probably.
easier now than it's ever been, but that doesn't mean it's simple or not time consuming. It's still going to be, something that's going to take a significant amount of time.
Okay, it's just something you can do if you really get into it.
Yeah, you could probably
Because
stick
I
with
was
it.
wondering all along. Yeah.
What about Bolt? That Bolt.
What do you use, Christopher? I'm sorry, Rich. For your videos, they look great, and I was actually wondering, do you just say, I create me a video about, I don't know, some Spider Woman, or is there more behind those videos, like making a script first and everything?
Yeah, for my major videos, there's always a script. There's always storyboarding. I come up with the ideas. I write all the dialogue. If there's voices, I record the voices myself, usually, unless it's female, and then I beg Kate for help with that because I can't convincingly fake a female voice. And then I edit it all together. I get the sound effects and put it together, usually in After Effects, which I don't recommend, but I'm kind of married to it because I've been using it for like 10 years. So yeah, it's not a simple process. Like there are tools out there where you can kind of put together a storyboard pretty quickly. I'm blanking on the names of some of them, where you can just give it a prompt and it'll create the story. They're not all that great. They'll put together videos for you and edit it all together, but it's not going to have great consistency, generally speaking. I think in videos is one of those. So I wouldn't recommend that, but I mean, you can give it a try. I think they have free options for that. But I use Luma, and if you go into the purple pill, you got for the show. There's a special link for that if you want to give it a try for free. And I recommend image to video with Luma Labs Dream Machine.
Yep. So, and the link's up above
Okay,
too
great.
in the Jumbotron to try out Luma. I like to use Midjourney for images to animate. I think a lot of people like to do that. And they have in there the mood boards feature, which, you can create your own little personalized model, but it's also really good for like kind of storyboarding and pulling together images and just keeping track of things. Cause it is, when you start generating a bunch of images for a project or whatever, organizing that stuff is tough. And then it's like a visual brainstorm in there as well. But there's tons of different image models that you can use, and you can exhaust a lot of free trials each month on those, or daily even, some of them.
You can also use images to
And
make
Grok.
up more. Yes, and Grok, and just, I thought about it as Rich was about storytelling. So Grok has new features, creates you images about sailing with Van Gogh and things like that, and you can actually use it to create a whole story about it, which is actually a good tool. You just use the ideas that you can have with AI to make more. So like, what would it be like, to actually be sailing, create a story about it.
Yeah, and that's what's so awesome about all these tools. We've got Money up on stage. Money Miller, good to see you. How you doing today?
Doing all right. Been a while. Glad to see y'all. Big shout out to the hostess with the mostest and the two wonderful co-hosts we've got here. If you don't follow them, please do. Just wanted to throw out Free Media Heck Yeah is another great resource. It's fmhy.net. You can find all types of different resources from AI to coding to Linux to database administration, security protocols and VPN, There's just a ton of free resources, applications, and stuff that they have in there. So definitely would recommend checking that out. It's fmhy.net. Also, on your idea for the kind of like cuddle buddy AI thing, like I think that's awesome. I think there's some other potential avenues you could take there. Like if you do a SaaS model and just have a monthly subscription fee, and you could turn it into something like, hey, we build an educational model on top of it to teach children how to speak Spanish or do things like that. I think there's a ton of intrinsic value there, and that could go so many different avenues, almost becoming like, your in-home teacher for all types of different types of content, or, could just help with, hey, I've got an AI buddy who is an assistant coach on a sports team that builds different types of routines that we need to go through for practice, or, things like that. I think there's just endless types of applications that you could use.
Everybody could have their own Dora the Explorer.
Well, that teacher aspect, that makes me think, like, when are AI teacher models gonna start being pushed out? Like very, very specialized models. Like this is specifically a mathematics AI teacher. It knows everything about math. It knows the problems that humans have when learning math. It knows how to teach in 20 different ways. And, like when is the science, AI teacher, the language arts AI teacher, like when are those coming? And coming to actual public schools?
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if that comes in the next few years. I mean, the stuff with AI that we've been kind of just like treading water with, the past couple of years. I know it seems like a lot of innovations happened, and it has, but I also have been feeling this sense like stuff's kind of been held back, and I think that we've kind of learned recently through the election here in the United States that that's definitely the case. So, I mean, we're already seeing some pretty crazy things happening just a couple days into a new administration here. So, I think a lot of this stuff where we're like, why doesn't this exist? Why isn't this anyone doing this? I think there's been a lot of roadblocks for that the past few years for just this kind of innovation, unless you've got like a huge chunk of money. So we'll see. I'm very excited and very optimistic for that future. So yeah.
So okay, if you had the teacher model, it could suggest that all the kids buy, the home model, just kind of like an ecosystem that works together. It's like an iPhone kind of thing.
Yeah, and people will sneer at that, but all through my childhood education years, every few weeks there'd be an assembly where someone's like, take this pamphlet home, make your parents buy things,
Yeah, like books. They did it with books, right? Like there was
Yeah.
definitely some back alley deals going down there. 100%. So we should
Yeah.
get in on that.
Well, I think it'll be like whatever company is making
Elastics.
yeah, whatever company is making the teacher models will work with whatever company is making the home assistant model. And so it's like the teacher will always be able to tutor the child from home also using the home assistant model, and it'll know like what problems or challenges the child might be facing in their home life, which then you have all sorts of privacy concerns.
Yeah. Just imagine all the indoctrination you could get done if you had like a direct line to their home. Think about it. It's amazing, right?
Far more efficient. But we'll go ahead around to the hands here. We've got some new people up on stage, so I want to say hello to them and welcome them up here. And I believe Artist Journey was next, so good to see you. Thanks for dropping in.
Yeah, likewise. How's it going, everybody? It's been a while, I feel, but it's so awesome to hear. It's really exciting talk. To kind of go a little bit way back, I really love the idea where you were all talking about the Teddy Ruxpin kind of thing going. That sounds really fun. We'll definitely love to hear your thoughts on the concept I've been working on for a while. But to kind of go on what everyone's talking about for now, education wise, I feel like China's already doing it, man. Like I've seen, I still have TikTok even though it was slightly banned for 24 hours or so. But you know, TikTok in China is completely different than the Western version that we get. If anything, there is actually curfews in terms of them being able to access it for a certain age. Same thing happens in Korea when you go out to these PC rooms, which is basically like an internet cafe, because at the time it was so hard to do that. But there's very strict laws abiding that, and most of the stuff, the algorithms for kids there is definitely educational based. And I'm sure we've seen like on Twitter like all these videos of like an AI attached to a camera that like analyzes the amount of times Betsy is working on Starbucks making the frappe mochaccino.
Yeah,
Well,
those videos are fucked. Oh my god!
right,
Like I
like
look at that and I'm like, yeah, you can just tell that the board is salivating looking at that.
right, it's just like eating up all the milliseconds of analyzation. And but that stuff is already there, it's said, in China. I feel I've seen few examples already for a while. So, and it's integrated already in their education system. They're already kind of like a police state. Like everything is so highly surveillance that just like how the rise of AI is coming, I just feel like it's inevitable that's going to happen at a certain state. Just how we're telling everyone in general about AI is inevitable. That the rate at it's going, and it's trying to feed and understand all of the squeeze out every essence of our humanity. It's going to be doing that at a constant 24/7 surveillance. It's just going to be permeating everywhere if we're reaching AGI and all that stuff. So like this huge, you know, open AI deal that's been happening, which is 300 billion, which is a crazy number. So funny that he's
500
also
billion.
five. Okay, there we go. What's that? I can't even fathom that what that would look like in pennies or dollars or anything. But that's just crazy. 500 billion is a pretty good investment into a really serious venture into like making these infrastructures that's going to rapidly change that. Think about all the stuff that we've been doing now on our personal computers. That a $500 billion infrastructure that is going to be wild. Like the end of this year, man, the fact that they're already doing something like that is crazy to me. So I'm just, I guess I'm making my silly films and working on SREPs all the time while the government is working on these big deals. But I feel like we're already seeing that too with so many advancements that we're seeing. I know Chris, for example, you're doing a lot with Luma. Luma's been doing great with Ray 2. So many of these upgrades. By the way, Midjourney mood boards and all that stuff you mentioned too is awesome. I've been doing that for a while. That was like a much needed upgrade. And I think that kind of went, I'm going on a tangent, I know this, but I really love how that got me really, really deeper into the rabbit hole of Midjourney, which is like blending and describing and mixing prompts and just really having fun with that. And with like the passing of David Lynch, RAP, but him kind of reverberating all his ethos, his essence, his knowledge about transcendental meditation, about the Lynchian aesthetic, is kind of getting a bit of a revival here with this stuff too. So that's on an aesthetic landscape. I feel that's kind of evolving now. But I'm sure we have a lot to respond back to this. But later on, I would love to kind of get everyone like a little brainstorm that'd be okay about the miasma project I've been doing for a while. If you're not familiar, it's probably just pinned on my profile already, but it's like the green tinged one. I've been talking with a few different people in the AI space, not necessarily AI filmmakers like ourselves or visual creatives, but people who are doing programming and particularly working with AI agents and whatnot. So it's figuring out a different way of immersive experience with AI agencies. Like the story, for example, I have Miasma. It spans 3 or 4 different eras, and then each era has a specific narrator that's documenting or explaining what's happening through. There might be a few, but it's like essentially one per era, and then kind of experimenting or exploring that idea of providing all the historical knowledge or the nuances and background of the whole world in each era, and then giving it to that specific person, then turning them into an AI agent, and then maybe doing like group discussions with people about exploring that, somehow attaching automated profiles for them or creating them being able to create automated imagery, based on a highly stylized lore of that world, and see how that takes off. I think that would be really interesting, and more people are able to have conversations with them, the more we will be able to unfold and like find out more things about an era and different worlds and how that could progress. So I just dropped a bunch of stuff in there, but yeah, happy to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, my first thought is if you're going to have other people kind of, the first thing I would expect to see if you have them as an agent and they're like a chatbot, you're going to want to have whatever like set in stone lore you have for that character and for the world in their era in memory at all times so that it doesn't contradict your narrative. And yeah, because I could see like the first thing people will do, if the lore is interesting and people are interested in it, is they're going to want to learn more and they're going to try to get it out of the AI model. And maybe you can even plug that in, like stuff that's not specifically stated in the series that you want them to kind of dig around and find. That would be cool, and that would be a reason for them to go in and talk to these agents.
Yeah, and I want to give Nate a chance to chime in on what we were talking about before, but I definitely want to dig more into your project and do a little bit of group brainstorming here on it and other ideas. And there was a lot a lot to dig into and discuss. And one of the things that you mentioned that really stood out to me again is this like huge dollar amount investment into AI. It's just this whole idea has just been kind of sitting on a table collecting dust, and now they just picked it up and blew the dust off. And so I feel like this is going to be money well spent. I mean, I'm always going to be hesitant with that because, there's always an element of waste with that, but it's probably going to be something better than typical. So again, optimistic for that. And I'm going to welcome Nate up on stage. Had your hand up. Thanks for being so patient and waiting. And you probably have something you want to add from earlier. So please feel free to comment on whatever you wanted to talk about, and welcome.
Hello. Good to see y'all. I just wanted to jump in and mention the AI teachers model or idea that is happening this year. Arizona, some charter schools in Arizona are starting to do that. You can Google it. You can search for Unbound School or Alpha School. Apparently, it's this network of charter schools starting in Arizona, but it's going to be in Texas and Florida as well. They're pioneering something they're calling the 2-hour learning model, and it's basically going to be AI teachers. So it says here the school is initially teaching kids in 4th through 8th grade. It's they have a white paper out. You can find a slew of information about it right now, but apparently it's like a proprietary model. I'm not sure exactly who is the developers or the sponsors of it or something like that. I've just read a little bit about it, not a whole lot, but it's happening. So if you want to do some research, there are the keywords. I can't post a link to it in this chat for some reason, but yeah, you can Google Unbound School and you'll find some stuff.
So you have to be a member of the community, I think, to reply below, because this is a community space. So you're welcome to request to join, and I'll get you in here, Nate, if you want to. No pressure, because I know there's a lot of communities here on X, and it can get a little cluttered sometime. But that's why. And same thing for anyone else here that's listening or up on stage that's not a member. I think everyone is. You can do that, and I'll get you in so you can add your comments below. But this is so exciting about this type of thing being tested in charter schools. It's kind of obvious. Like, I'm glad you came up here, Nate, and said that, because yeah, charter schools and private schools will be the first ones to do this. And of course, there is also a lot of things that might be changing in the Department of Education. I think that's probably one of the other things.
They're all getting replaced by AI. It's amazing.
Yeah, so it might be something that we see pop up in the public schools sooner than we think as well, which is interesting. I'm sure there's actually a lot of teachers that would find that very helpful, and they probably do already use it, I would think, when they're crafting their lesson plans and things. I can imagine. So it just...
It's like a meme, right? Like a person uses ChatGPT to write their essay, and then the teacher uses ChatGPT to grade the essay.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, getting it into the system, if you will, like in a way that is most effective and beneficial. So it's not a lot of this, like, how am I going to get away with this? And how are you going to get away with this? And trying to be deceptive about it, but using in a way, proactive way that's effective and actually useful and beneficial to the learning process, you got to have it. So that's the only way to sort that out. So that's exciting. So thanks for sharing that, Nate.
Yeah, thanks, Nate. I'm reading about it now. It says that teachers are known as guides in these classrooms, which is interesting because they just guide the student as motivators and emotional support. Yeah, it is interesting. I think as long as it's like a hybrid model, as long as they have a certain amount of time with AI as well as hands-on instruction with an actual human teacher, I think that's fine because then it's just another learning tool that's available. As long as we're not just throwing them in a room with an AI for 8 hours a
Yeah,
day and no other. Yeah,
it seems a little shady, right? Like right off the bat, like, oh, it's only 2 hours, and obviously any kid who got kicked out of high school is going to see that and be like, hell yeah, 2 hours. I don't care who I'm talking to. Like it seems a
yeah,
little, not sure.
Well,
yeah.
I
We'll have
think
to see where it goes.
if the ultimate goal is like, okay, you're sitting down with the AI or the interactive device or whatever, however it's presented, and it's programmed to have a result. Like today, we want the student to learn, okay, I'm going to date myself, like the times tables, which maybe, and I think they don't learn that now, but just trying to think of something. And that's the goal. So we want to learn the times tables up to 10 or something. So that would be the goal for the day. And that 2 hour span, working with the child at their own pace, figuring out where they're stuck, what's not sticking, going back and repeating the things that weren't working and skipping the stuff that was working because they've already absorbed that to avoid any like I can see how if the end result is already decided, that 2 hours could be used pretty efficiently, and it may be even something that they do have multiple tasks. So it's like today's the times tables in math, but then we're also learning about the water ecology, like precipitation and condensation, all that in the atmosphere. We're learning that in science today, and then the something else in English. You know, all that is the goal, and it just is at the pace of the child. I could see that as an effective work. I mean, I'm like so projecting here because this would have been I would have learned so fantastically this way. I would have really enjoyed it. I would have been done in 20 minutes with the 2 hour lesson, and I would have had more time to play. So it would have been great for me. But if the AI is able to figure out what works best for the kid and then also detect like, okay, who's learns quicker or who needs
Who needs to be
more
challenged
time.
more? Yeah.
Yeah, in a way that keeps everyone in the same classroom and isn't dividing kids, because I think that's kind of a problem where it's like, oh, these kids are smarter, they're going off to a special class, but being
Well,
able to,
if it could also work in a way that does keep them socially interacting with each other, maybe it'll be like, child A is excelling at this type of subject while child C is having an issue with it. Let's pair A with C and see if A can teach C a little bit, hands-on instruction peer to peer.
yeah, and that just takes some of the load off the teachers who, may intuitively know that, but then not actually be able to, articulate it in a way or have the time to implement something like that. It's again, yeah, like you said, Rich, it's got to be a mix of both. You need to have the teacher and a teacher's assistant probably in the room, and the same as it is now in most places, that make sure everything's going the direction, and of course no one's jailbreaking the AI.
Yeah, that was
Which,
my first thought. It was
yeah,
just like, if it's already a problem when they have like a substitute teacher in the class, right? They're always trying to like, you know, oh, we were supposed to watch a movie today or something like that, and just get them off track as much as possible so they don't have to do anything. Like it would be this times 10 with AI.
I think what would be pretty interesting is how the students will be educating themselves and how more challenging will it be to kind of quantify the the mark or the score that you would give to them. If you, for example, if they, let's take that example of multiplication. We could easily on ChatGPT say, "Hey Siri, like give me a rap about 10 times 10 in the style of Sesame Street, hosted by Snoop Dogg." And I think it would be
I
interesting
bet
where,
that exists already.
but you know what I mean? Like that will be a part of the curriculum, and then each student, their all goal is to focus on learning the 10 times 10. But how does each person or group work or fine tune their educational workflow for that? So I think they'll have jailbreaking is inevitable. So I think if that was something they don't want to do, I think they have no choice but to kind of go headlong into that and see how these students are utilizing AI, because this next generation are going to be born into this era, which is going to be wild. So, their relationship with it compared to what we've seen, I'm sure some of us have already seen the rise of the internet, all that stuff. It's easy to detach from that stuff and communicate and interactivity. Like my son, sometimes he'll try to tap on my computer screen like it's an iPad. And I'm like, no, this isn't how it works. Here's the mouse. Like hold the left and right click button kind of a thing. So the way how they're going to interact and interface is going to be pretty crazy. And we're going to be those senile old people who, don't know how to use the 3 seashells or something. So I'm waiting for that.
Yeah,
What a
absolutely.
reference.
Yeah, it's exciting. But yeah, of course, we want to make sure, test a lot of this stuff. And so like what Nate was saying about the charter schools and stuff, it's like, this is where it can get, tested out and see what works. It's just going to be so fascinating. I'm very excited. And we got Chris Gallaty up here. Good to see you. How you doing today?
I'm doing. I don't know if you guys have a little noise in the background. I'm in a room full of 3D printers, so if you hear any background noise. I was going to speak just a little bit to the gifted, or the dirty label that's given to the kids that are at the top of the class. The biggest problem you run into, and why I see an AI being a nightmare, is gifted kids, when they get bored, they cause trouble, right? So my son, I'm the one that caught this, not the school. First of all, they were giving kids independent time to like read or something on their iPads, because they give every kid an iPad now. My son had managed to bypass the school security system and make himself an 18 plus Google account so that he could watch whatever YouTube videos he wanted. And he was doing this in front of the teacher, which I thought was hilarious. So then after I called this out and told the school about it, and their IT guy was there, and I showed him the logs that I had that he didn't, they said, fine, we'll put your son in the library, but they left him unsupervised. Well, my school, or the kids' school, had this like a reading challenge thing. And if you checked out a book that was part of this reading challenge, you would turn around and you would get points. And if you got so many points, you get a book or something. Anyway, they leave my son unsupervised in the library. He turns around and figures out what system they're using. And, he's young, so he's not that bright. And so he keeps finding these books. And by the time they finally realized something was up, he was hacking the system. You cannot leave a gifted child idle, alone, only unsupervised with an AI or something else. You have to challenge them with something useful. Otherwise, they're going to get into trouble. And so, yes, the first thing that my kid would have done would have been to jailbreak the AI and do whatever he wanted to do.
It seems like he's learning. Like this is all agency, right?
Well, I had to take him aside and say, look, you got one of two choices. If you're going to do this kind of stuff, you got to get better at covering your tracks, or you got to find different ways to amuse yourself that don't cause, doesn't cause problems. Because I ran into similar situations when I was a kid where the adults, the humans there, didn't have the capacity to understand what I was doing, much less an AI that's watching. And so I see just no shortage of, and AI is never going to be able to look at a kid and see they're getting in trouble. That's just not going to happen, right? That's a level of intuition and emotion that is well beyond anything that we can program. And so without at least some human watching what's going on, it'll never work.
Yeah, I love that. I love the advice that you gave your kid, because it's the same thing that I would say to my daughter. It's just like, if you're gonna do this shit, be good at it. Don't be an idiot.
And that's the only thing you can do at that point. You can't tell him don't do it, because he's obviously gonna do whatever he will do. It's just a matter of, you either have to, you have to at some point in your life decide to either be a white hat hacker or a black hat hacker. right? And that's good down to parroting how you turn around and teach your kid to turn around the world. So, but I will say that there is a problem in school systems. And I kind of, the metaphor I use is the way that public schools work now is it's like you've got a cardboard box, right? You take a big cardboard box, you put all the kids underneath. Ideally, most of the kids are just walking along in the center of the box. The gifted kids are at the front of the box, pushing the front end of the box, and there's kids in the back that are just getting drugged along by the back of the box. And that's how normal classrooms tend to operate these days. And you can't necessarily mix those like that. You have to have a better balance. Otherwise, you're doing a disservice to most all of the kids, because either a gifted kid that is not being challenged or a kid that's a little bit behind that is frustrated because nobody's paying attention to them and helping them along are both going to disrupt that whole classroom, and all the kids in the middle are going to suffer.
I think an issue with that too is just like the ratio of parents to, or sorry, teachers to students. Having a child myself, he's like turning 5 years old now, and we're like worried about sociability or like some issues that he had because he has ASD, and then it's understandable that a lot of teachers there have a ratio of like 1 teacher to 30 students or anything, and it depends on locations that you're going for. So that's also another issue too that's happening with the education system of like taking that huge metaphor of like pushing this big piece of a block, and then all these people are pushing it or getting dragged in different directions and stuff. That hopefully, if the structure is set properly, then that would give more incentive to hire more educators or people who are able to, facilitate other kids who have more, additional strengths that they need to work on. That can provide more human relationships, because that really is the big no if we were to just close a room with just students with an AI, because how is that different than you go to the restaurant at 2 years old and you, because you can't control your kid, you just the common thing I was guilty as charged for this too, is like just putting the phone there, an iPad, and just let them kind of docile them for the most part. And then I really realized that was such a big hindrance, and we took that out. And now we don't even have a TV really. Like he doesn't even like watch any of that stuff, but he's more focused on like being more engaged and everything like that. So I really do hope that with that kind of infrastructure, that they would kind of help provide more facilities for more educators, that can kind of specialize in different things, do observationals and stuff, but still cater to people, working on, being independent and working on their own work, because that's going to be what the huge skill is, more the critical thinking overall for humanity, I think, in terms of AI integrating into our daily lives. We've always talked about creativity and technology and how that's permeating that and a lot of different jobs. So if it's everything's being automated, critical thinking, having a depth of understanding, maybe more Montessori style. I have no idea, never been to one, but that's what I always hear as a cliche. But hopefully, that could be, kind of be more awareness about and kind of get improved upon.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris, and respond.
Oh, no, what I was going to say is, and I mean, I don't speak for any company. I did work for the company that made accelerated math and accelerated reader. Where I have seen opportunity in this space, we've already been there, whether or not the software was implemented to the point that it should have been. I have arguments about that. But I don't know if anyone's familiar with the products, but the ideal with something like that is you have a bunch of kids and you have a given subject like mathematics, right? Rather than the teacher just having a book, you do an initial assessment with the kids. The software figures out where a child is at, and it makes custom worksheets and custom tests for that child throughout the course of the year, and then allows the teacher an easy way to grade them. So what you end up doing is the kids can work at their own pace, but they're still working together. The teacher's still available to help them when they need to, but they're not being held behind or pushed ahead. And we did the same thing with Accelerated Reader. I say we, I was just part of the company doing the software for a little bit, but they would turn around, they would take a book that was just off the shelf, they would give it a Lexile score, they would grade it and see what level it was, and then they would throw that at the kid, have them read the book, but then they would answer questions on the book with the software to kind of verify that they had reading comprehension and they had actually read the book. But it was more self-paced. And so what you do then is you give the children that are capable and mature enough to operate at a self-pace, the ability to work as far ahead as they want without disrupting things. But then you also free up that one teacher that's a resource there to focus on the kids that need a little bit more handheld when they're working on problems or something, or some spot tutoring on a given concept. And the nice thing about the software, and I'm talking, this was in the Stone Ages, right? This wasn't even AI. We were just basically using algorithms to figure this stuff out. But if a kid's having a problem with long division, you just spam them a whole sheet full of long division and hammer it on them until they get it, and then you move them on to the next concept. They don't move ahead until you've shown mastery. And the thing is you don't need, when you're doing something like that, you don't need assessments to be like they are, because through the course of that kid's work, you already know that there's an assessment. So you can give lesser, or you can give, there's a lot of kids that have problems with quizzes, right? There's too high pressure and all this stuff. You can be having these assessments and doing them all along and get a good feel for where your child actually is in the program. You can get like a detailed report without the extra overhead of, you got to take a test, you have to take your MCATs, you have to take your whatever. And I think that helps. The problem that we have in schools, because we do not have observation, and there's whole documentaries on this, there are different kids that have different ways of learning. And if we would track these kids early and figure out this person works better in a group, this person works better alone, this person wants, oral instruction, this person wants visual instruction. If we were to, and we're not typecasting these kids, we're figuring out what is the optimal way for this child to learn. And then we leverage that in their education system. We would take a lot of kids that are considered behind, and we probably bump them up to the level that they're at or move them ahead. It's just, there's not enough. When you've got 30 people in a classroom, there's no way that teacher is paying attention to all those children at that level. And then the other part of that, as much as I like the idea of like special ed and getting people socialized, what tends to happen in a situation like that is the kids that take up most of the teacher's time monopolize the class, and the rest of the class suffers. And so you want to integrate kids, but if they're really at a functional level where they don't work well in that environment, you want to put them in an environment where they're going to be able to thrive and not drag everyone else back.
Yeah, I love this, all of it, because I was like black-pilled about the education system in like second grade. I have a very vivid memory of it because I went on vacation with my family during the school year, and I was gone for 2 weeks, I think. And the teacher gave me the book and all the assignments that I had to finish and all that stuff. So I did that every day while I was on vacation and learned everything and was able to do the little mini quizzes and everything. And then when I got back, I was so far ahead of the entire class. It was unbelievable. The work I did, we never even got to in the book by the end of the school year. And we went on vacation in like February or something. And I remember this very clearly. And I was like, oh, okay, don't do that.
The ultimate betrayal. You saw
It
through the
really
veil
is.
at a young age.
And it's not like I got a little sticker for that or anything. It was just, now I have to sit through everything I already learned by myself and sit through and watch everyone try and learn it. It was like a form of torture you would never want to inflict on somebody.
This is like a microcosm of like just meritocracy in America, isn't it? And just one short story.
Yeah, it's crazy. And the thing is, not all kids learn the same. Like, I would have been fine, give me the textbook and the quizzes I need to complete, leave me alone in a quiet room for 4 hours every day, and I'll be fine. And not everyone learns that way. And then there got to be a point when I hit a certain age that didn't work for me. And I really struggled in school because all this way that I was doing it myself, it all changed when I started to hit a wall, and there was something that just went a leap too far for me to comprehend, and I needed to actually study and work hard on it. And I could have used that support, but I never needed it up until then. So I didn't even know how to ask for it, and no one's there to provide it for me. It's like a whole little web, and something like that, like with an AI tutor of some kind, would have been a game changer for me personally. And that's just an anecdotal story, but I'm sure everyone in this room has a story from those education years that you could see where a tool like this just being available would have made a huge difference. So really, really good discussion on this, and very interesting that the topic of just brainstorming in general took us this way. And you can see that there's lots of use cases for this in education, and it'll be very exciting to see where this goes. So hopefully we'll revisit this subject again another time. And I want to just welcome all the new people that popped in. Thank you for joining us today. And we're just talking about brainstorming, and we go off on little tangents here into subjects that just interest us, and pooling our minds and coming up with ideas. And it's just a really cool thing to do. And space is such a fantastic tool to do it. We talked earlier in the show about how we up here, the panel, use tools to brainstorm and how we like to brainstorm when we have a concept or an idea. And now we've kind of morphed into talking about actual things that we are working on and hoping to just like get in the room here and talk about them, maybe come up with ideas and everything. And the artist journey has his art project. Art project sounds like I'm talking about like a high school art project, but it's far more than that. It's a very, very cool thing. So why don't you talk about that a little bit more? And Christopher gave some great feedback already, but talk about it a little bit more, and we'll get the room brainstorming for you and what you are hoping to do with it and direction you want to go, or where you need help, or where you're stuck.
Yeah, definitely. I still consider it kind of like an art project. It sounds so weird to say it, but it really is, right? That's what we're doing in our free time. Yeah, so I think I probably shared it in the purple pill at the bottom right. Or maybe not. Maybe I put something else. Either way, you can check my pin post on my Twitter. And I just been working on this project called Miasma, and it's an acronym for Minds Interlinking Ancient Spiritual Machines and Awakening, or Awake. So the whole it's kind of playing in this genre of J horror from the 1990s, a very Silent Hill, Lynchian inspired, kind of liminal horror, backrooms aesthetic that I really love. And it's about, this alternate reality kind of, mostly it's Japan basically, but an alternate reality of that where everyone's traumas or fears or desires is physically manifesting out into reality, and it's affecting their cities and the world. And because of that, it starts to affect everything else. Kind of goes along the lines of, with these spiritual machines, how it's also being tested and experimented with technology. And there's this one point in the first era where there was a miasma academy, where these kind of elite groups, they're like using these students as, speaking of what we're talking about anyways, but like using these students as experimentations in understanding how to bridge these technologies and these spiritual machines. And then they find out through these rituals that they can make these portals, these kind of nexus portals, and it's made out of like the bodies of people, so through these ritual processes, in these huge pools, kind of like these tunnel pools that they have, that's kind of like the start of how that starts to affect the other worlds. Because before then there was like slight weird oddities that people are kind of mentioning about with TVs, or like weird reflections in mirrors, or like certain locations has weird energies and vibes. And then that's when more all hell kind of the shit hits the fan basically. And that first era would probably be narrated by one of the survivors, or the students, and kind of documenting about their time. And I think that would be a really interesting perspective to kind of get into a glimpse of what that world is like. And then later on it will like expand into how technology completely consumes everything, and there is a narrator for that. And it's most likely either the machine itself, very like straightforward, no emotion based, kind of just documenting obscured facts or details or something like that, very methodical. And another one is like the group of people who are survivors that are still trying to find a way out of that. And there's no written paper or anything. So they're the metaphorical name for them are called stones. And they try to either etch it on stones or onto their skin about like these most basic information that's futile about like extending humanity amidst this time. And then after that there's like huge, more like at the far end of all of this happening, there was the silent era. And these are like the past bygone era of people who don't really understand what had happened. and they don't even talk really. Maybe they might sing, or they just listen to the echoes of all these different eras and stuff. And hopefully with the portals is kind of this thing where they're able to kind of have some connection or a glimpse to anything else. So with I've been using Figma. I wish I could show it here, but on my Figma board, I've made like a map, kind of like a battleship map. It's like A to like 1 to 10, from the top, and then A to J from the bottom, and then kind of documenting map areas. Like, this is the industrial area, this is the forest area, whatever, blah blah blah, and made a GPT where it's only focused on this world building aspect. So from there, it would get that information. I can upload any image I make out of Miasma, and then it will tell me which era it's from, what the contents are, give me a quote of that narrator, and where that location is. So that's what I'm building right now. I have like over 600 images. I'm just constantly just building it for the sake of it. But my goal is, like, I would love for this to be like a game later on, like a Hideo Kojima kind of a thing. And in terms of like the immersiveness or the interactivity, what I was talking about before with like AI agencies and people building out these worlds is, for me, like the most alluring thing. That's why I love the liminal backrooms, SCP, anti-memetics kind of concepts, where it was like very subcultural idea, and then Reddit or 4chan, whoever, a group of people just started to just build it piece by piece. So Chris, you mentioned about like setting everything in stone. That's definitely what I'm trying to do now, for sure. I'm trying to make a book out of this first, so that's kind of more concrete, more like a physical book. That would be great. So still working on that, but eventually, at the same time, let these ideas and things grow as it evolves. And I would love to kind of see, how this could be affected with 3D rooms, recording imagery, and then we can kind of be able to kind of move into these places. If you have hundreds and hundreds of imagery of a world or eras, then I can imagine it'd be much more easier down the line that you can start to upload these into some type of an AI machine, and then stitch them together as literal spaces, create like a map of some kind with everything else. So maybe a very, very non-traditional way of making a game, because it would probably be some type of a gamer, or just a way to enter that space. And to get very meta in the process would be super interesting. So who knows, like maybe in the future, like bring over like a chat GPT narration, or just an AI agent of a character talking, that would be pretty cool, to bring them into spaces and kind of find more about that and let that grow. So that's where I'm at.
If it was a game, sorry, go ahead, Chris.
So we mentioned SCP, and that's probably a good example of maybe like the kind of community you're trying to build with storytelling. I think a focus on just a few specific stories may be the best way to move forward. And just like you were saying, you had 3 eras and 3 narrators for that. Just try to focus on 3 really good stories that catch people's imagination. Usually when people think of SCP, they're thinking of like really specific ones, like the one that's always facing, and like you have to be watching it all the time or it'll instantly kill you, that kind of thing, like simple concepts that then open up, mentioning the larger world, but only hinting at it, and then telling a bigger story, just based on all of them being together in the same place. That's probably a good way to move forward with it. And then, like stuff like games and 3D experiences, all that kind of stuff. I think a lot of people will build that, just like you're seeing with backrooms type stuff. There's like a million games already, like liminal space games, and specifically backrooms type games, because just that one story, that very first story about the backrooms, caught people's attention. And I don't think any of that other stuff would have existed if that first story hadn't existed first.
Yeah, Rich,
Wait.
did you have something?
Well, what's backrooms? What is that? I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, there was a post on 4chan. It was an image that looked very dreamlike. It was like yellow walls, and it was like a portal. It looked like it was made in a dream or something like that. And then somebody made a comment on it, and they said something like, there's 300 million miles of disjointed hallways, and that's like, and there's something in there, and it's like it's if you've heard it, it's definitely heard you, that kind of thing. And it's like, it was just a very simple, like, 2-sentence story. I'm not misquoting it, but that was the basic beginning of it. So it started with that, just this one image, and I'll put it down in the purple pill with the story. But yeah, that was the basic idea, and then other people took that and they're like, oh, it's like, this is level one of the back rooms, and it looks like an office, and it's creepy. And then there's just other levels, and people just kept building on it. There's a website where people like go
Okay.
into like different levels of the back rooms that look differently and act differently, and maybe there's monsters, maybe there's not. It's like a whole thing.
Wow.
Yeah, it seems it's also like maybe the more popular one before that was like Slender Man that a lot of people know. Just in that concept of an internet, it's like urban legends, but for the internet era, where it's just people were making these things that are like could even. Do you remember way back, maybe Midjourney V1, V2? There is an internet urban legend about Loab. I'm not sure if anyone ever heard of this before. LOAB. So if you go into just maybe anywhere, Google or whatever, hopefully it'll tell you about Loab. It was basically this cursed face this one user had claimed to had keep finding, in their generations. And it's this kind of cursed woman who, keeps appearing and stuff like that. Kind of like a Ringu, the Ring kind of vibe to that. But yeah, the back rooms is basically that concept of no clipping out of reality. So when you're playing a video game, there are obviously boundaries, but if you get stuck in a specific way, you might go in a part of the game that you're not supposed to, which is no clipping out of that space. So that's essentially the glitch in the matrix, people kind of going in this offbeat space that looks very familiar, but it's not. Again, that kind of Byzantine maze that Chris was talking about, very Lynchian. David Lynch, I think he kind of helped push that whole stratosphere of like diving into this other plane of existence of the subconscious and these weird things that are happening. So it's a very, prominent thing in the horror space and stuff like that. But yeah, just big fan of that. And I think that would be pretty cool to explore with these type of projects.
Yeah, so like my thoughts on this, and I did pin up at the top here your post there, and also Christopher's added some of the context for what we're talking about. And I didn't know anything about any of this until I met Christopher, and he gave me the YouTube lesson plan that I needed.
She watched like a 3-hour video on it. It's crazy.
Did you show her that the Backrooms one by King Pixels?
I don't think we watched that because she doesn't like. I'm
Oh,
not
I see.
there physically, so like she gets scared, and it's kind of a
she
horror
can't.
thing.
He can't put the toothpicks under my eyelids,
Old school, yeah.
Yeah. So just listening to what you're talking about, it's like this is also cool, and a couple of things that I jotted down. The idea that eventually the world is like it's kind of autonomous and takes on its own life, which is just such a cool concept. And for me, I thought of, my video game context is pretty weak, guys, but like when you go into a world like Grand Theft Auto and you have like you're just wandering around and then there's all these missions that you could do. So I could see like wandering around that world that you've created, and it's not pre-programmed. It's just like the AI decides or whatever, like that this is happening now and you have to get involved as a way of making it like a game type of thing. And it's like that to me sounded like such a cool interactive way that would be more fun for someone like me that's not necessarily that big into video games, because I struggle with the like, okay, here's your mission. Now you have to die and restart 1,000 times till you get it. Like that's not a motivator for me to play or fun really. But something like this where you don't really know where it's going and you kind of play it out, it sounds more fun. And I'm sure there's games that exist that already do this, guys. Like I know I'm not spouting out probably any original ideas when it comes to this because there's so many really smart people thinking about all this all the time.
But there aren't a ton of them. Skyrim has a thing where it's like Radiant quests, where it's like after you finish the main story, or even before, there are like random dungeons that are, I think they're infinitely created, and it's just like a little mini story that gets swapped around. So that's like That's the first one that I can think of, but I think it's actually a hard thing to build, so that you don't see it very much.
Yeah, and the other thought I had, just as far as adding to the brainstorming part of all this, was, building out the stories that, like Christopher was saying, from the different timelines sounds like a really good idea, of just having maybe a core group of characters that you really get into, and they have like a whole backstory and we get to know them really well in these stories. But then also you have these ancillary characters, which maybe you just learn a little bit about, but now you're curious about them. So they're presented in a way where we don't really learn much about them, but they're interesting and we are curious about them. And so then maybe there's a way for people who get kind of invested in this story to, now they can take that character and build out its story and how it fits into things. That sounded like a really interesting way to get people to feel like they could be invested in that in some way, in that story building. And I think characters is the way to do that, versus just like, this is cool looking, which it is super cool. So that was my 2 cents on that. And Chris's hand went up, so we'll go to him, see what he's got to add.
And to find my mute. No, a couple things I was going to mention back on the thing there. They had done a crowdsourced search of that original office backroom photo. The only reason why I even knew about this thing was I took my kid to work late one day and all the lights were off. And in the hallway, he's like, I feel like I'm in the back rooms. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he told me about the whole thing. They found that the original photo that they considered was part of the back rooms, that office area, was actually a hobby shop in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, which was kind of funny because we know people that live there. If you have not read, there's a book by Neil Stevenson called Snow Crash. And one of the things that has not yet happened, a lot of people are more familiar now with the Ready Player One type mentality. But way back in the day, before all this, there was a book called Snow Crash. And there was a protocol called the Street. And kind of what we're talking about here, there was like a space that just about anyone could connect to and contribute to. And something like you're talking about, to make characters or to make a shared creative space, if you will. It hasn't arisen yet, but I kind of see some of that happening. But it's going to take somebody that doesn't want to own the whole thing, bootstrapping it. That's kind of the problem. Early on, I don't know if anyone here is familiar with the term Second Life or the game that was there. There was a chance that Second Life could have kind of gone the direction that the Street went. Basically, the Street mentality was there was an open protocol. Anyone could add a server to it. You would buy virtual real estate in this kind of VR environment. But then once you went into a building, it could be just like a door on a street. You would be shunted off to their servers and you could have a whole universe back there. But there was kind of a common area. And then you could have kind of the nomenclature and the topology that we're used to. Like there could be a red light district, there could be the fun mall area and all that stuff to kind of keep people in line. But the problem that I've seen with this, and what I haven't been able to figure out, is how we bootstrap that creative commons, if you will, such that everyone can contribute, but nobody owns it. The problem is these companies get in there like a Facebook or someone else or Microsoft or what have you, and they want to be the whole solution. The problem is somebody has to like create the protocol, create the base software, and just kind of unleash it on the world and prevent somebody from embracing and extending it.
Yeah. So Wilfred, do you have any thoughts on that? Like what we shared here, and then we're going to move on because I'm going to be closing the space here soon, but I hope we've gotten some ideas for you.
Yeah, definitely. I love all of these concepts as well. I mean, everything you're describing too, really reminds me of just what the metaverse is trying to be in that sense. If we, Web3 and like all these different blockchains, if you can think of them as like different individual servers, and like people are making mini worlds in there, and like with the rise of AGI or AI agents, and we're thinking so much about consciousness, and if we are building consciousness and we can imbue it into like AI agents later on, they would be coexisting, but in an alternate reality, which would be like a Web3 metaverse type of a space. And obviously, when we have robots and stuff, it's like finding a way for them to kind of engage with us in our physical space, which is another meta kind of trippy thing that probably happen later on. But yeah, I think this is like really cool to kind of just share these ideas that I have in my head. I'm really excited to go deeper into a lot of different interesting timelines, because with each character, you can write a very detailed timeline history of things and incidents that have happened and a lot of different people. There's also like a lot of things where maybe that narrator could maybe not know every single person that's been mentioned, but they are like somewhat aware, and then that would give more accessibility for people to kind of dive into finding about that character, like you had mentioned, or I can even imagine a lot of characters sometimes are very unreliable, or they just refuse to communicate in certain ways. I think like imbuing that kind of personality, and that's the way to experience that world is going to be pretty interesting. It's whatever. I'm always curious about. It's hard for us to, even for me to kind of imagine, but what is like this next wave of entertainment that it's not necessarily a game, not necessarily a movie, something in between, and it's palpable and stuff. So I'm very curious. I think obviously AI is going to kind of lead us to that direction of a new form of interactivity. Gamification word is kind of overplayed a lot, but because everything is just trying to be gamified all the time. But this immersive, this interaction that we're going to be having and kind of playing with that now, I think is going to be pretty cool. So I love to, thanks again for just sharing, your thoughts on this. I would love to consider this conversation as a pin and see by the end of the year what that's going to be like based on everything we've been talking about.
Oh yeah, this is what's so fun about these spaces is just as it evolves over time. And I record all these because they do tend to sometimes vanish off of X. I never delete anything when I record these, but they do sometimes they purge something and they do disappear. But I do have recordings of everything, and so I have the record, which is cool, and it's a good way to just you know, yeah, exactly. See where we're at in a year from now. I mean, it'll be really cool. And we got Hoops up here. I want to say hi to Hoops. Thanks for joining us. And we are going to be closing up here in a little bit. I do want to get to Christopher's brainstorming sesh that he wanted to do. And I also have a mini one. So, but we'll go to Hoops, say hi to him, and anything you wanted to add to that. Great to see you.
Hey, Kate, everybody. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you can hear me. Let me take this earphone. That should be a little better, I hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, to take those earphones out. I was just listening to the gentleman speak, and he mentioned, giving consciousness to the AI having consciousness. And immediately I thought to myself, here we go, man, continuously trying to innovate himself out of the equation. AI is obviously a little pretty interesting right now. I can imagine AI with consciousness. That definitely means sentiency, right? And we're creating, obviously, with if that's the situation, we definitely are creating an enemy in my estimation, because if AI becomes sentient in any sense of the word, I think we're in for something that we can't really fathom right now, and it's not going to be us that's going to be responsible. It's going to be our kids, right? It's going to be our kids that we're creating this tragedy for, because man loved to tinker, man loved to create. We all saw Frankenstein back in the day, and I love AI. I use AI for a lot of things, but there are situations now where guardrails are being scaled by AI. I was looking at this situation the other day where this gentleman was just standing there, and I'm sure you all saw it. He had he was giving chat GPT commands to control this massive automatic gun that he had inside. And that was pretty interesting. I was looking at that like, yo, man, this guy is just here giving chat GPT orders, and it's obeying all his commands to fire here, fire there, fire. So, I think we're eventually going to innovate ourselves out of this equation with AI. And it's not us that's going to feel it. It's going to be our kids. And I don't think I'm being overly sensitive about the matter, because man has a love for destruction. We have a love for destruction. We love destroying shit. And I think eventually this is probably one of the we we're definitely gonna get closer to this destroying ourselves or leaving a terrible world ahead for our kids. You know, if we continue to innovate this AI stuff. Anyway, I'm in love with AI. I use AI a lot, but yeah, some people are trying to go a little too far with this. Anyway,
Yeah, I hear you. And we talked earlier about a lot of this stuff, how it could be implemented in the classroom, and we talked a lot about that and how it is going to affect kids and all different age groups and everything. And I also totally agree with you. Like, I love AI and everything, but if you're not also thinking about where it can all go wrong, I mean, you're just not being honest with that. So like there is a balance there. We all need to be watchful eyes, and we also need to be using it. And the more people who are using it, the better, because then we are seeing like, oh, this something's not right here, or just more people paying attention to what's actually going on is is always going to be better, and it's going to make this more of a universal type of tool that it benefits more people instead of just being specialized for the few. And military is big part of of that as well.
right. I mean, we are coexisting with nuclear energy right now, you know?
Yeah, which is wild to think about, right? When you put it in that perspective. Yeah, so thanks for adding that, Hoops. Really great. And I want to get to, been doing little mini brainstorm sessions here for people. And Christopher mentioned at the beginning of the space, he had one that he wanted to kind of do here. So we'll do that. And then we will start closing up the space. So what's your concept or idea or whatever you wanted to talk about?
So this is something I've been working on and off for like maybe a year or two, just doing little art pieces here and there. But the basic idea is like showing the aftermath and maybe part of the actual main events of an alien invasion of floating blue jellyfish that just kind of swarm all over the world. And the main idea, like aesthetically, is like showing something that's horrible but visually is beautiful, and that's kind of the way that they insinuate themselves when they first show up. They're just like, wow, these things are amazing, they're beautiful, and eventually cut to 2 years later and there's very few humans left, and you kind of have to try to fill in the blanks about what actually happened there, and following survivors and telling the story by working around it and saying like, there's like, I'm working on a couple of like very specific stories of like, this group of survivors and that group of survivors, and telling their story from their perspective and not really understanding what's going on, because I think that's a realistic look at what an alien invasion would be like. It would be horrible but also incomprehensible, and they're just trying to deal with that and trying to survive. So yeah, so the visuals that I pinned above are kind of a just to give you an idea of what that might look like. But again, like not telling the actual story of what exactly happened. I know what the story is, but I think it might be more interesting to do it from these people's perspective who don't know exactly what's going on even years later.
Yeah, I like this concept of how you want to present it. But I do have a question. Are you picturing this as like just a one-off type of like movie film type of thing, or is it like a series?
Series, like telling stories from like a good analogy would be, or analog would be, World War Z, which is like individuals telling their stories from like the zombie war. So this would be like something like that. There'd be like jumping around all around the world and telling individual stories.
I like it. I
Yeah.
think that. Sorry, go ahead, Kate.
I was going to say I like it too, and I do like the idea of the jellyfish, which is something that you look at like through nature films and stuff, and it's like, oh, it's so beautiful, and they're such interesting creatures. Are they humans? Are they plants? Are I mean, are they animals? Are they plants?
They're very alien just looking.
Yeah, they are. And then if anyone's actually been swimming in the ocean and like seen like a jellyfish, it's like the most terrifying moment as well. So it's definitely one of those things that works for this kind of presentation, because if you're just looking out your window, like in one of those shots, it almost looks like someone's just it's point of view of just looking out the window at what's happening, that it can be like kind of beautiful and innocuous, and it's like, oh, whatever, it's just jellyfish, and then someone outside, it's going to be a little bit of a different scenario. One of those tentacles comes off and they're severed by it or something, be pretty gruesome. So I like this. And then I also do like the idea you have of, I haven't heard about this, by the way, guys. I know me and Christopher, we talk every day, we're together and everything, but he's just got so many ideas. I don't know. I don't hear them all, but the storytelling part of it, because it's like, it can be hard to tell a story in an innovative way, or what is perceived as innovative or stands out, right? So that idea of the story is only told through the perspective of the people that are there individually in that moment. It's interesting, and it would be cool to see how that develops. So as far as like general feedback, I think as a series it'd be cool, but it'd probably be something, I wonder if it would be something that would be better to actually have completed before you do it, instead of doing it out piece by piece.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
feel
I'm
like
learning that now with a major series that I'm working on now, that like there is an advantage to maybe doing at least a set of series all together. It's just difficult, when it's not like funded, and you don't know if it's going to be successful, to spend a lot of time with that, and wanting to get feedback, wanting that dopamine hit. So it's a constant struggle for the ages.
Yeah, and it's because it's a format that we're used to with TV production. They do a pilot, right? And then they get picked up as a series, and then they do 8 episodes or whatever all at once before anything comes out. And there's probably a reason for that. And, go ahead and chime in on that.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
sorry.
was gonna no, I was gonna say really quickly for the jellyfish concept. The video you have already is pretty evocative. I think you do such a great job of getting down on an aesthetic and mood. So I think that would be when an idea already inside your mind, and how you kind of explore it through generative AI, or through the music, or through the aesthetics, could kind of lead you to some really interesting moments that are probably not necessarily fixed or set. And for what it's worth, in Elden Ring, the jellyfish in that world are supposedly supposed to represent two things, which is they're like the lost spirits of deceased children, and they have like childlike voices in it. And the other metaphor for the jellyfish is purgatory. So, whenever, for example, like Silent Hill, the moths is a sense of decay and beauty and everything else. Jellyfish can be something that has already some type of an innate symbolism based on pop culture, but then something else you can also imbue into the story, just by utilizing that, and how that is affecting the world around them. And I think that can really give a nice entrance into the perspective of the characters and how they're witnessing that.
Interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, I really like the idea, Christopher. And I think that like the jellyfish form, I think it's perfect, especially for a creature that is, floating through space, going from one planet to another, and, raping of resources and people or whatever. But I think that it probably has multi forms. I'm envisioning it as like it takes jellyfish form once it enters the atmosphere of a planet, maybe, but like while it's surfing through space, it actually is more like a rock, and maybe they form together and make like a little hive, and so they're like one structure, this giant asteroid or comet or whatever that's careening through space. And then once it enters the solar system and comes closer to a planet, it starts to break apart. And then once it comes into an atmosphere, then they start to take their jellyfish shape so that they can float around the planet and like slowly descend upon somebody's head and like eat their flesh and have nothing but a skull left, or like take over their mind and like possess them and control their bodies or something like that. I don't know, there's a lot of things you can do with it. And as far as like from the story of somebody who is kind of like living through this and not quite sure what's going on or whatever. It could be like, the invasion happened and like people went down to their bunkers or whatever, and like a couple months later a family is trying to like peek their heads out and see what's going on because they're running out of supplies. So they're just starting to venture out into this world that's left behind a couple months after the alien invasion has taken place. Yeah, I can't wait to see what you do with it.
Yeah, you might have been right on a couple of those things, but yeah.
Yeah, very cool. And we're going to be wrapping the space up here, but we have a couple things that we need to mop up before we close out. One is I did have a brainstorming thing I was going to put out there if we didn't have anything to talk about. But, usually what I have to say doesn't ever we don't really get to it much. But that's okay. That's okay. That's not why I host.
We can do it if you want to.
No. I'm going to it's a little mini one. So I pinned up above for Sunday's space, and we're going to brainstorm together the Sunday space topic. So what should the topic be? And you can go ahead and just reply on that with your ideas, what we could do. And I'll pick one, but then also any other ideas that are like, oh, these are good, we could do for future ones. So of course I can always come up with an idea, but I do love the idea of what do you guys want to talk about? What do you think is missing in these spaces or other spaces that you're going to that you want to get into more, or maybe want to try some discussion on something? Drop it in there and add your thoughts to the community, because it's like I can always come up with ideas and things to talk about. That's not the problem, but I want to make sure you guys are all included and feel like you're getting the discussions that you want to have. I know a lot of the people that do come, we just are very much like-minded, or at least enjoy the little bit of back and forth on different topics. And so we always have really great conversations here. And I want to make sure you guys all feel included into the subject matter we get into. And even if it is just like, okay, let's just have one of those spaces where everyone's just talking about their projects. I love those because they go in all kinds of different directions. So if you like those, put that in there. Or if you like these ones, this brainstorming one was really cool. We went in some really deep into some cool stuff. It's cool subjects. So we could do more of these. Any other ideas? Please drop those in the replies, and I'll be making sure to keep note of that and really doing more brainstorming on the types of spaces we host in the community. So that's all. Let's see. Then now we have the poll results. I believe those should be in or close to in.
They are in. What is the measure of the man was the poll. Last place is other, his friends. Second place, his family. And in first place, his deeds.
Indeed. I think that's spot on. Everyone got the poll correct this week. Excellent job. Everyone kind of last week or the week before? Everyone failed the poll. Oh no, it was last week. Oh, they chose glitter for the replacement for grass, which was
oh my God, that would end everything forever. The economy would never recover.
I know. I almost deleted my X account over that. Like, can you imagine? Everyone's just dead on the side of the road from inhaling glitter.
Can you imagine that's part of the jellyfish? They just leave glitter everywhere.
Oh no. I mean, some things are too horrific to discuss, I think, and that's one of them. But like think about it. Out of everything that could have been like an ecological disaster for the entire world, glitter would probably never go away. Like you can only hoover up so much. It's always going to be there forever. It'll get into the groundwater and kill us all.
Yeah, it'd be like mosquitoes, like there's no way we could ever get rid of mosquitoes. Yeah, so that's cool. That's good. Yes, we judge men by their deeds, and by men, you can say humans.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. And something to take home with you tonight and think about, because yes, our deeds are what define us indeed.
Truly.
Truly. All right. Indeed. Indubitably. So thank you everyone for joining us today. This was like a fantastic discussion. Really loved where we went with everything and all the great speakers here. Thank you so much for coming up and speaking. And of course to my co-hosts. And if you're not following them, you need to be always creating amazing content on this platform. If you're not in the community yet, request to join the community collaboration station. And then that way you'll get the notifications when we have these spaces every Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern, and every Sunday. And that time is now 6 p.m. Eastern. So 6 to 8 p.m. is the new time. They used to be a little bit later. So that is going to be the new regular time because that worked out so well. And that's all I've got, I think. Co-host, do you have anything else you want to add? Did we get it all out there? The Luma link above, we can talk about that. So pinned above and also in the replies is a link to try out Luma Labs video AI, and that directly supports the content we put out here. So you can click on that and check it out if you haven't yet. And besides that, I think I'm just going to wrap it up. Good, guys?
Thank you all for coming.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Have an awesome day, and I'll see you out there.